Most of my life, I believed I had everything figured out. I married young, raised 2 children, worked part-time at the local library, and baked on Sundays. Love to me was something quiet and dependable, the kind that sat beside you on the couch without needing to say much. I never strayed from routine. I never questioned what was missing. Not until a stormy afternoon cracked open something I thought I had sealed forever. I never imagined something like this would happen to me. Please don't make the mistake I did of thinking it never could. It started with the rain, the heavy kind. The kind that makes the windows weep and turns the pavement into rivers. I was home alone, sipping tea by the window, watching the hedges sway, when I saw someone running up the sidewalk, soaked hoodie clinging to his back. At first, I assumed it was a neighborhood kid. But as he got closer, I recognized him. Ethan, Michelle, and Gary's son. The couple next door, 22, maybe 23. I'd seen him around mowing their lawn, jogging past, headphones in. We'd never exchanged more than a polite nod, until that moment. He jogged up my steps and knocked, breathless. "Hey, Mrs. Carter. I mean, Sorry, I got caught out walking and it just poured. My parents aren't home and I forgot my key." He looked like a drenched puppy. Jeans stuck to his legs, water dripping from his hair. I paused only a second before stepping aside. "Come in before you catch cold," I said. He murmured thanks as he stepped into my foyer, dripping. I fetched a towel and handed it to him. He grinned, rubbing his hair dry. "Didn't mean to barge in like this. Just needed a place to wait it out." "No trouble," I said, trying not to stare. "Let me toss your clothes in the dryer. You can change into something of my son's. I keep a few of his things in the guest room." He blinked, surprised. "That'd be great." "Thanks." As I walked down the hallway, I realized I was a little out of breath, not from exertion, but from something tightening in my chest. My husband passed away 3 years ago. I'd grown used to the quiet, but it had been a long time since a Manani man had been in this house in a way that made me feel. Notice. Ethan returned moments later, dressed in a navy t-shirt and sweatpants that hung loose on his frame. "You're a lifesaver," he said, flopping onto the couch like he belonged there. "Man, your place still smells like cinnamon. I used to come here with my mom as a kid for your lemon bars, remember?" I smiled, settling into the armchair across from him. "They're still my specialty." We talked for a while, casual things. Job search, my garden, the strangeness of the world lately. Rain tapped the windows like a slow metronome. Thunder rumbled in the distance. Somewhere in the middle of our conversation, I realized how easy he was to talk to, how closely he listened, how his soft green eyes lingered a little too long. But not in a way that made me uncomfortable. Quite the opposite. After a while, he glanced at the window. "Sorry if I'm overstaying. Rain's not letting up." "You're fine," I said, then added too quickly, "You can stay for dinner if you'd like. It's just me here, and I made too much soup." His face lit up. "That sounds amazing." So he stayed. We ate potato leek soup and buttered toast. I laughed more than I had in months. He was funny in a quiet, self-deprecating way. Thoughtful. Gentle. After dinner, we moved to the living room. The lights were low, warm, and amber. It's the kind that makes everything feel like it's moving slower. He sat on the rug, back against the couch, legs stretched out like a boy again. Then, quietly, "Can I ask you something?" "Course." "Do you ever get lonely?" The question cut through the dim light like lightning. I hesitated. My mouth opened, then closed. He looked up at me with eyes that didn't flinch. "Yes," I said finally. More than I let on. He nodded slowly. "Me too." The silence after wasn't awkward. It was full. It's full of everything neither of us could quite say. I watched the way his fingers absently picked at the hem of his shirt. How his jaw tensed just slightly, like he was trying to hold something back. "I used to see you out in the yard," he said, "reading. You always looked so peaceful." I liked that. I didn't know how to respond. Compliments had become rare in my life. And coming from someone like him, young, present. Seeing me as more than a neighbor landed deeper than I expected. I stood to clear the dishes, flustered. "Let me help," he said. We stood in the kitchen side by side, washing and drying, not speaking. Our arms bumped once, then again, and the third time, I didn't move away. I looked at him. He was already looking at me. The moment stretched a breath, suspended. I didn't think. I only felt. The warmth of him near, the hum in my chest. That feeling I thought I'd buried with my wedding ring in the jewelry drawer. But then, stepped back. "I should probably find you a blanket," I whispered. He nodded. "Yeah. Okay, Dot." And just like that, the moment passed. But it didn't disappear. It lingered. Like the scent of rain drifting through the screen door. Like the way a silence can mean everything and nothing at once. The next morning, the sky was scrubbed clean. Soft, washed light streamed into the kitchen. I stood in my robe, coffee in hand, and listened to the hush of the house. But something had shifted, quietly, permanently. And I knew I couldn't pretend not to notice it anymore. Thinking about the night before, Ethan had slept on the couch. I'd brought him a blanket and a pillow, careful not to meet his eyes too long. We hadn't said much after the kitchen moment, just good night, followed by a silence that seemed tocho louder than anything we'd spoken. I didn't sleep much. My thoughts circled endlessly, not just around what almost happened, but what it meant that E wanted it too. When I peeked into Thalavine's room, I found him awake, already folding the blanket, the pillow neatly stacked on the armrest. He was back in his own clothes, dry now, and he looked up with a soft, almost apologetic smile. "Morning." "Ah," he said, voice husky. "Was asleep." "Morning," I replied, brushing my hair behind my ear like a nervous schoolgirl. "I hope I didn't snore." "You didn't. Kita days," I said, and then added, "Your acquiescent guest." He nodded and moved towards front door, slipping on his sneakers. "Thanks for everything." Dot, really, I didn't mean to make anything weird. I stood there still holding the mug, unsure of what to say. The grown-up part of Meth, rational widow, the mother, they're respectable. Neighbor wanted to nod, say it's fine, and close the chapter. But theater, the part that had come alive under, the warmth of his gaze was spread thought. I was lying to myself. "It wasn't word," I said a little too quickly. "Iman, it caught me off guard, that's all." He paused, half turned to the door. Moot. We stood in that quiet again, like who didn't quite know how to end something that hadn't really begun. Then her reached for the handle. "Well, I'll let you get back to your day." "Effing Heddernt, any time you need to come by, Rainer. Not my door's open there," I said at his face. Shifted the smile this time, wasn't sheepish, thought it was something softer, something grateful. "Thanks, Mrs. Carter, just call me Diane." He left, and I stood there a moment longer, the echo of his footsteps on my porch fading behind the soft clink of my spoon in the coffee mug. The rest of the day passed in an odd sort of haze. I tried to keep busy. I cleaned out the linen closet, watered the Gearden, rearranged the spice rack. Every quiet moment between chores brought my mind back to him. Why did it matter? Why did it feel like something had cracked open inside me, like a window I hadn't realized had been shut for years? That night, I sat on the porch. Thera was warm, the trees still dripping from the storm, and my paperback LuvReal on my lap. I must have been staring too long because I didn't hear him approach. "Hey," I looked up, and there he was, hands in his pockets. "Hair still slightly damp from a recent shower. You came back," I said, surprised at how happy I was to see him. "Didn't think I'd mind." "I don't." He sat beside me. "Not too close, but close enough." "Sorry again about yesterday," he said. "I don't usually do that." Whatever that was, I know I said softly. "Me neither." We sat in silence for a while, watching the world settle into dusk. The porch light flicked on automatically, casting us in gold. "I've been feeling kind of lost lately." Admitted, eyes on the horizon, moving back here. "It's like I'm in this weird space beat. Ween being a kid and being a man, I didn't really know where I fit. I tornado him. I know more than you think about that." Feeling his eyes met mine, and for a second I forgot the age difference. The decades between us didn't feel so wide not when we were both just two people to figure out where we belonged down the world again. I miss talking like this. I said I didn't realize how much I missed being seen. You're easy to talk to, he said, and I see you. I really do. The words hit me like a warm wave is swallowed my throat suddenly. Tight, can I ask you something, Diane? Of course, Thatman in the kitchen. Did you feel it to my breath? Caught, I stared down at my hands for a moment, then looked up Diaz. I did. He exhaled like he'd been holding it in 4 hours. Okay, I just needed to. No, I wasn't crazy. You're not. The pause that followed wasn't uncertain more. It was filled with a quiet kind-off permission, a mutual understanding. Thought something had shifted between yous, and it wasn't going away. I should probably go, he said, standing. Slowly, you didn't have to, I replied, surprising even myself. He didn't move, just looked at Meshat. I want to stay. He said gently, but only if you want that too. I stood them facing him fully. The porch light cast a soft glow across his face, and for the first time in years, I felt something stir in me. Something alive. I don't know what this is, I whispered, but I'm not ready to close the door on it. He nodded. And so neither of us did the next time Ethan came over. It wasn't because of the rain. The sky was clear, the air warm with that late spring stillness that lingers just before summer. I wasted to the hydrangeas in the front yard, hands deep in soil, when I heard his footsteps on the sidewalk. Need a hand? He asked, and when I looked up, he was already crouching beside me. We didn't talk much at first. He grabbed a towel and helped me replant one of the sagging stems I shunk, and how to break up their roots gently. We moved in rhythm. Two people, different generations kneeling in same dirt, and somehow it just felt natural when we finally sat on the porch with lemon water sweat glistening on Erskine. He leaned back and said, "This feels right." I nodded. It does. There was still no label for what we were. I wasn't trying to make sense of it, and neither was he. There were unspoken boundaries ones. We both seemed to send honor, but they didn't keep us apart. They just helped us move slowly, carefully. With intention, that night invited him to stay for dinner. Again, he made roast chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans sautéed in garlic and olive oil. He helped set the table, humming some tune I didn't recognize. We ate and talked like old friends sometimes, laughing sometimes, falling into those warm, weighty silence that didn't demand to be filled. After dinner, he wandered over to my record player, an old thing I hadn't used in years, and leafed through my menial collection. He grinned when he pulled "Oh Now, Fleetwood Mac." I smiled. Stevie Nicks always makes everything feel more complicated and beautiful at the cement time. He placed the record carefully and dropped the needle. The familiar hum and crackle filled the room before the music swelled. He held out a hand. I stared at it. "Dance with me," he asked. If I'd been years, maybe decades, since Agnon had asked me that, my heart thought it as I stood and let him guide me to the center of the living room. The furniture became background, the walls faded, and all that existed was the hishoff, the music, and his hand on my waist. Wes swayed slowly. I felt the warmth of his breath near my ear, the gentle press off his hand between my shoulder blades. I rested my cheek lightly on his chest and closed my eyes. "I don't want this to end," murmured. I didn't either. When the song faded, we didn't let go right away. Our embrace softened, but our hands stayed connected. I pulled back slightly. "Oh, look at him. What are we doing, Nathan?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He didn't answer right away. He searched my eyes like he was trying to find the words. "I don't know, Hesed, but it feels honest." And it did. Felt unexplainable, but not wrong. I led him to the couch. We sat close, knees touching, the quiet stretching between Usagan. Only this time it was full of questions we weren't ready to answer. Then his fingers brushed mine. I looked down at our hands, then up at his face, and I let them stay there. I've spent so many years trying not to feel, I say trying to be okay with being alone. I didn't think I could want this again, Yukon, he said gently. You do. My heart pounded in my chest. It was too fast, too strange, too unexpected, but it was also real. No pretending nor else to play. Just the raw truth, off wanting connection in a life that had grown Far too quiet, he leaned forward, not forcefully, just a question in high size. I didn't answer with words. I kissed him. It wasn't rushed or desperate. It was tender, a quiet acknowledgement of everything that had been building between us when we pulled apart. His forehead rested against mine, both of you's breathless. Diane, he said softly, I'll never do anything you don't want ever. No, I whispered. That's why I'm not afraid. We didn't go any further. That night we just sat together, hands laced, hearts open. He stayed on the couch again, but this time the air between us was warm with understanding, not uncertainty. As I lay in bed, I didn't toss and turn with guilt or confusion. I felt calm. Something had begun, something real, and I didn't want to run from it any more. The days that follow, I'd moved, slowly, gently, like waking up from a long sleep and remembering how to breathe. Ethan didn't come over every day. I didn't expect him to. But when he did, always felt like the world grew quieter, softer, like everything in my life before him had been written in pencil, and now somehow things were inked in one afternoon. I found myself sitting on the back porch with a glass of wine, the late sun casting long golden streaks across the lawn. I heard the side gate creak open. He'd learned not to knock anymore. He walked in with teasy confidence, holding a small box in his hands. What's that? I asked, setting my glass down, a little surprise. Hezid, placing it on the table. Inside was an old Polaroid camera, the kind I had seen since my kids were young. He smiled us. I stared at it, then pulled some thingles from his pocket, a new film cartridge. I figured, he said, if we're making memories, maybe we should keep a few. I laughed, touched more than I expected to be. You really are something. He raised the camera and pointed it at AMM. Say that again, but slower. I rolled my eyes, but smiled, clicked the photo, slid out with the software, and he waved it in fear. I watched as the image slowly developed me, smiling, chilly hair, a little messy from the breeze, one hand resting to the table, the other tucked at my side. I looked older than I felt, but happy Earth than I had in years. Later, we sat on the grass in the backyard. The sun dipped low and fireflies began their quiet blinking dance around us. He lay on his back, hands behind his head, while I traced invisible circles on my knee with one finger. You ever wonder what people would say? I husked quietly. He turned his head toward him. About us. I nodded all the time, admitted, but I also know this. No one Niels is living this life for us. I looked at him. Really looked at the way his eyes glinted in the fading light, the calm steadiness of his voice, the strange wisdom that lived beneath his youth. Hewen trying to play a role he wasn't there, out of some fleeting thrill. He washer because he saw me and stayed anyway. Not naive, I said. This, whatever it is between us, it won't be simple. No, he said, sitting up, but it can be honest and beautiful and maybe even worth it. I didn't reply right away, reached out and took his hand instead. I want to stop waiting for perfect, I said finally. I've waited so long, Andy, I'm tired. He pulled me gently toward him. I rested against his chest, feeling steady rhythm of his heart beneath me ear. That night we didn't talk much more. We just stayed there, curled together. In the hush of twilight, Willethy world outside our fence carried O'Noon, aware of the small, quiet miracle happening in my backyard. When he left later, he kissed my cheek, not rushed, not questioning, just present. And when he locked the door behind him, I stood in the hallway for a long time, holding the Polaroid photo he'd left on the table. It was me, yes, but somehow more than that. It was a moment, a version of myself he thought I'd forgotten, hopeful, up and quietly brave. I placed the photo on the fridge, not to remember him, but to remember me, because that's what love can do. Real love, even when it comes in unexpected form, it reminds us who we were before the silence and who we still have a chance to become. I don't know what the future holds for Ethan and maybe you. I know I'm not afraid to find out. Not any more. Thanks for listening.